Hola, buenos dias, welcome to Clear Vision. And this is the channel where you can find a whole host of videos covering all sorts of issues that people face in relationships and within themselves from day to day. All the videos here are based on my experiences as a psychotherapist and as a human being myself, trying to work my way through life the best I can. Please like and subscribe as always, and if there is anything you want me to talk about or discuss or share insights on, please let me know in the comments section below. This week I wanted to just finish off the Oedipal complex thing, and I wanted to look at the Greek myth. I'm big into my Greek myths. Well, I'm not big into it, but I do like my Greek myths. They can give us lots of insight, and there is often the story of Oedipus is told. Yeah, Oedipus, like he killed his father and married his mother, and it all went a bit wrong after that. There's a little bit more to it than that. I don't know if you're into Greek mythology, but it can show us a lot of things about relationship dynamics, and it kind of feeds into my previous video, which was about getting our needs met and using the Oedipal complex for that. You can also apply this to attachment stuff and some Jungian things as well, anything kind of psychodynamic, and it kind of goes along with that as well. So without further ado, Oedipus, a bit like the Moses story, there was a prophecy of a king, I think it's the king of Thebes, that his son will overthrow him, kill him, and take the city and marry the wife, his mother, which is effectively his mother. And in hearing this from the oracle at Delphi, the king decides to have all of his any future sons that are born are going to be killed, as is for some weird reason. I don't know why they do this in Greek mythology. They're doing a lot. Anyway, so he's going to have his sons killed. And of course his wife is expecting a boy child, and she hides him, sends him away, and he ends up on an island somewhere in Greece, being raised by a shepherd. And eventually he feels a calling to go wandering. Something in him drives him. And with the blessing of who he perceives to be his parents, the shepherd and his wife, he leaves the island and he eventually ends up in Thebes. So on his travels, and again, depending on the story, which version you read, one version has that Oedipus is well aware of the prophecy because he's been told the prophecy as well, and another one is unaware of it. So on his way to Thebes, or on his way, his travels, he's heading towards Thebes, he comes across a man, a traveller, who he believes is a traveller, and a fight ensues and he kills the traveller. Eventually he ends up in the city of Thebes, which is in chaos because their king has gone travelling and has disappeared, never to return. And a Sphinx has laid siege to the city and asks all who enter a riddle, and if they get the riddle wrong, the Sphinx devours them. Oedipus comes across the city, comes across the Sphinx, and answers the question, the riddle, that the Sphinx gives him. And upon answering it, the Sphinx disappears, jumps off a cliff, kills itself, etc., etc. Now, Oedipus is then hailed as a hero because he's defeated the Sphinx, and this city is in turmoil because the king's missing, presumed dead, and the Sphinx had laid siege to the city, and now this wonderful hero has come along and saved them, so they make him king, and he takes the remaining queen for his wife. Unbeknownst to Oedipus, the queen is actually his mother, and the man who he killed in the fight at a tavern is in fact his father, or was in fact his father. He is completely unaware of this. Now, Oedipus becomes filled with his own delusions of grandeur, and why wouldn't he? He's defeated this monster, he's defeated this weird guy, he was abandoned as a child, he's now made his way, now he's a king of a city. I mean, his ego is pretty inflated, so he's on the levels of narcissism. You can see how all this stuff links together. So there ensues a period of abundance within the city. Everything's doing well, all commerce, all agriculture, wealth, the arts, everybody's happy, everything's very, very prosperous city. And then with that, the ego of Oedipus begins to inflate further, because now he's also a successful king. So now there's proof in the pudding. And the gods, in all of their wisdom in Greek mythology, decide that Oedipus is acting with way too much hubris, which is kind of arrogance, and defying the gods. And so they strike the city down into chaos and famine and all the rest of it, and everybody's looking for answers and what have you, and it's all complete chaos. Like his father before him, Oedipus goes to the Oracle of Delphi to look for answers. The Oracle of Delphi, I believe, in one version, and in another version it's some kind of wise man soothsayer. Tell him the truth. You killed your father that day, X amount of years ago, and you've married your mother, and you've had children with your mother, because you've got children as well by this point. And the gods are so kind of like disgusted by what's happened and your hubris and your arrogant nature that they are now striking the city down with famine and pestilence and war and chaos. Oedipus leaves the Oracle of Delphi, goes to the palace and informs his wife, of the truth. She hangs herself by her robes in the palace, and there's a brooch on her robes which Oedipus takes from her and uses to gouge out his eyes. From there he then is forced into the wilderness to wander, and he becomes a wise sage, and his children take over Thebes or something. It goes to prosperity again, but he becomes a wise sage, and the land wherever he dies and he's buried, the land becomes fertile and blessed. What on earth is that all about? It's where Freud got the Oedipal complex from, which is where you want your mother, you can't have your mother because your father will castrate you as a child, so you end up solving the problem through education, and then you solve the problem further in adulthood by marrying somebody very much like your mother, and then trying to solve the problem that way. Or the Electra complex, which is the other way around, which would be with your a daughter marrying her father. There's a little bit more depth to this. The Sphinx can be seen as the all-devouring mother in some respects, which is that so much love and self-sacrifice from a mother figure causes ego inflation, narcissism, which will last for a certain amount of time until hubris is born, which is the defying the gods, thinking you're godlike, and then the universe, the gods, nature will bring the world crashing down around you. Because the Sphinx's riddle was quite easy to solve. It was a child's riddle, so it was a trick. And the moral of the story also is that you cannot defy your destiny or your meaning, your authentic self. It kind of vaguely touches on that, but the big thing it touches on, which is if you are physically able to see, you can be psychologically blind. Once you are psychologically able to see, you need to be physically blinded in order to psychologically see, is kind of the moral of the story. Too much ego in the world will come crashing down around you, that's for sure. All-devouring mother will also bring the world crashing down around you. Marrying somebody like your mother or your opposite sex parent, trying to solve the problem that way, will take you a certain amount of the way until you come into conflict. You'll find this kind of like, prosperity, and then it'll all come crashing down. Finding out too much about yourself too soon, too much self-knowledge, too much awareness, too much awakening, too quick before you're ready, not enough processing time, will leave you blinded, will leave you wounded for quite some time. That's what the moral of this story is actually about. Having said that, once you get rid of your ego, once you are kind of annihilated to a point and you are wandering in the wilderness, like, you become a wise sage. This is about letting go. This is about becoming who you are. This is about letting go of lots of attachments. This is about embracing yourself. It's very, very abstract, but it has so many roots into, or there are so many things which have their roots into this, so there's existentialism's in there, psychodynamics in there, psychoanalytic stuff is in there, the ways we live, ego, narcissism. lots of Eastern philosophy, Eastern religions. It all feeds in. It's all kind of depicted in this one tale, or there are roots within that. Like I said, too much too soon, not enough processing time. It's very, very dangerous. It can completely destroy us. Too much ego, and we begin to act with hubris. Marrying somebody, having a relationship with somebody who is like one of our parents, it's not always a good idea. I think would be another one. It's, you can solve the problem to a certain amount, but at some point you still have to authentically become yourself. That probably made no sense at all, because it is quite abstract and convoluted, but it is an interesting tale, and it's quite stark in some respects, and like I said, often a few of the characters are kind of left out, and a few of the dynamics. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Adios.